Good afternoon, Brooke Butler. Welcome on VH Berries.
Thanks for having me.
I am very grateful. How are you doing today?
I'm having a lovely day. I did go to the DMV, but other than that, it's been a good day.
What is the DMV?
Oh, the Department of Motor Vehicles. I had to do something with my ID and my registration so that I don't get pulled over.
If you're starting right from the start to use very complicated letters, you're going to lost me from the first second.
I'm sorry. I wish I could speak French so that we could, get into my roots and your roots here, but I'll stick to English.
You will stick to English. And right now, you are in a very special place because you could be ready to record an audiobook or maybe read out loud one of your poetry.
Oh, you know about my poetry. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I've been writing poetry honestly, since I was probably a kid. I'm sure that was terrible poetry. But no, I've really gotten into it in the past 6-7 years. It started off for me when I was maybe in a dark mental place as a way to express myself and get my feelings out. And then it slowly became something that I loved, that I started incorporating and writing all the time. Sometimes even if I'm working on a character, I'll put myself in the mind space of them and write poetry as if I'm that character. So it's been something that just kind of keeps me in my creative brain space. Not that I'm going to necessarily do anything with it, I don't know, but it's just something I really enjoy.
You're really enjoying this activity and doing it for yourself. And I referred to poetry and voiceovers and sound in general because you are in a studio.
I am. I'm in my music studio right now. It might look kind of wild, but it's the only way I could set everything up. I feel like a podcaster.
I would love to discuss about one of your latest release called A Day to Die, in which a lot of things are happening in less than 12 hours.
Yeah, it's a time crunch. But, that's what keeps it entertaining. And I think, our director, Wes Miller, it is an action film, but there's so much weaved into it. I think just the genre of action, gets people in the seats. But I think there's so much more being said about people from different walks of life having to come together for a common goal, which is something that we really need right now, especially in America with everything that's going on. But I loved being a part of this film, the creative process, and working with Kevin Dillon, who was such a creative and such a giver. Every time I would say, I think this happened right before our scene, and I think this is where we're at, and we're trying for this, and, we have these money problems, and, this is where we're at socially, this is where we're at economically, and he would just be like, yeah, and be so down for everything, and that's kind of my favorite type of person to work with. And Wes Miller allowed that as well. I came in and I said, I'm one of the few females in this film. It's really important to me that she's not a victim, because you have all of these strong male leads like, Frank Grillo and Bruce Willis, who are just iconic for, kicking butt. And so as someone representing, the female of the film, I was like, she needs to fight back too. She does get kidnapped, spoiler. But I wanted her to be strong and represent that strong. It was extremely important to me to not just be the damsel in distress.
Your character needs to be very strong. And for that, it all starts with bacon and eggs because it is a very healthy meal. Hence, they can do a very great dinner.
Yes, that was a funny little quip within the script. Yeah, it was kind of a lovely moment where, We find out, I don't know, should I be giving this away? We find out my character's maybe expecting. I'm not. Brooke is not. Candace was. Which just heightens the stakes for her when she's thrust into this world. And it also heightens the stakes for Kevin Dillon's character. Because there's not only one person he could lose, which is his wife, but there's his future and his children. And so I think it just puts the layers of pressure on top of the situation that was occurring at the time, and also gives Candace such a reason to really fight, but to also use her wit and her intelligence in her scenes where she's speaking to Leon, who's an incredible actor. I believe he leans into method, which I do as well. So we had this really great respect and camaraderie during our scenes where Candace says, okay, maybe I can't fight my way out yet, but I can ask him, does he have children? Does he have family? Does he understand the circumstance that he is putting her in? And you see that kind of affect him. And eventually she fights as well. But that relationship that builds there, I think, is extremely important, because I knew coming in that with all these incredible action scenes and these incredible action stars and everything, things blowing up and, guns being shot and banks and all these things, that I knew it was important for Candace to be this center heart piece. And that was like a lot of pressure. But I think that came through building the relationships with the different characters and coming from a more feminine point of view than just, hey, I'm going to blow this up, but instead, hey, I'm going to use some wit and intelligence and see if I can affect this person, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? You and I speaking right now, we're both humans. I'm sure we both have incredible days. I'm sure we both have awful days. And no matter who we are, where we come from, what we look like, that's something that brings us together as human beings. And that's something that I took away from playing Candace, because I like to do characters that I believe when I walk away, I'm going to have learned something from them. And I think what I learned from working with Wes on this film and this incredible cast in portraying Candace was that at the end of the day, we really are all human and usually want the same things. So just learning to find ways to relate to people and ways to find kindness within that has actually affected my life and how I've gone forward in my relationships with people.
And for both Candice Connolly and Brooke Butler, poetry is very important, but do you know what is more important than poetry?
What?
One avocado per day.
One avocado a day. You know all the lines. That was improvised. That's so funny. I love it. It is, though. Eat your greens.
Absolutely. I know every single lines of your character. And just before, you didn't want it to reveal that your character was expecting a baby, because it is the first scene in the movie where you're appearing, discovering the result in live with the millions of people that are watching the movie.
Yeah. The first scene that Candace appears in the film is an extremely private moment. In preparing for that, I had to think of, I'm a waitress. My husband's a parole officer. We don't have a lot of money. It wasn't something that was necessarily planned. So there's a lot of pressure and layers going into that. And it was important for me, just even little things like, I said, okay, I want to make sure I'm still in my waitress uniform. I'd probably, just gone to a drugstore and picked up a pregnancy test, and she's come home. She's made sure that her husband's not home yet because she wants to know for herself first. And it was important for me to have food on her. So you'll see there's a moment where I'm picking food off myself, and that just says where she's at. and with a feeling of, this is so much joy. I'm so in love with my husband, but are we in a place where we can do this? And I think that's something so many couples ask themselves, as they're preparing. And so she has this fear in telling him. And when he's so ecstatic, it's just such a relief, and it brings such a joyful moment that when the rest of everything ensues, I think it kind of launches into that. But yeah, I tried to imagine as well, what that would be like and what that would feel like to know I'm not really in the place financially maybe to have a child, but this is happening. And what are we going to do? I mean, it's just questions. You can never stop asking questions, and that's the one thing I know I'm good at. My friends often call me the question asker because I always want to know what makes people tick. I always want to understand, what happened to someone that made them where they are. And I think that's so important with acting as well, just to never, ever, ever stop asking questions. Every single person on this planet has layers. There's times that people are lying. There's secrets that people keep. There's times when people are truthful. There's times where people appear genuine but are holding like super dark secrets, and that's true of everyone on the planet. So always continuing to ask questions and layer a character just brings so much more relatability. Perfection is gross, truly. So even moments where I'm like, oh, I messed up in this scene, right? Messed up. Those are going to be the best moments because you're going to see truth. Yeah.
We are going to see truth, Brooke Butler. And broadly speaking, you mentioned multiple times that word of layers because you're always trying to put a lot of emphasis on the diversity of layers into the preparation of your characters, but also all along your journey and career.
Yeah, 100%. Are you talking about me as a person as well?
As an individual, of course.
Yeah, I mean, life is layered. Life is crazy. It's weird in the day of social media. Everyone appears so perfect, right? Because it's this it's this place where you can put all of your best moments and edit them. And I've just recently really tried leaning into my imperfections, and in doing so, I think I've actually discovered who I'm supposed to be on this earth. And so that's something that's been a journey for me recently. I've been doing what are called morning pages. So every morning I wake up and I just stream of consciousness write for 3 pages. And it's incredible the stuff your brain comes up with before your day starts. But also what you get off of your brain before your day starts. And that just really centers you. And so, yeah, leaning into imperfections and imperfect characters has kind of been my favorite thing recently, especially with, the way the world likes to portray itself. And I'm guilty of it as well. Like, oh, look, everything's so great. Meanwhile, you're like, I'm going to freak out. But, so, yeah. Layers.
Layers. And Brooke Butler, there are also many layers when it comes to another field. And this time, I am talking about football.
Oh, yes, football/soccer, I think is what you're talking about.
I would say only football.
Yes, I know. It should be called football, FUTBOL, but yeah, I think you're saying I grew up playing soccer. And for a long time, I always thought that's what I wanted to do, is go pro with soccer. I don't know if I was good enough, but I loved it. I would do it 7 days a week. I was on a team for Washington State. I grew up in Seattle, and it was so crazy. And it came to a point where one of my coaches said, "You need to choose between soccer and theater because I was also the lead in all the school plays and doing performances and writing plays. And it was kind of starting, to have this tug of war. And I was like, oh, well, it's soccer. Like, well, what is the rest of this like creativity junk? And then I showed up to soccer practice and I sat in the car and I started hysterically crying and I couldn't get out of the car. I think I was just 14. My parents looked back and I was like, it's acting. And they're like, okay, reverse the car. Think I made the right choice because it seems to be going okay. And I'm extremely happy. And as soon as I was forced to like make the choice to lean into that, is I think truly when like the gods of creativity were like, oh yes, now here you go and you can express yourself and it doesn't have to be through getting a yellow card on the soccer field, which I got a lot, slide tackling. But it's funny because then I went to USC and I was in the theater school there because my parents said, if you want to do this creativity thing, you need to get a degree. Which I don't know if that's like true anymore, by the way. But I did. And I ended up doing cheerleading there for who knows what reason. It was like a dare for me to try out. And I was always athletic and did gymnastics. So I tried out and did that. And then I ended up having another pivotal moment like that where it was my Shakespeare coach pulled me aside and said, you need to choose. And I had a massive final Shakespeare performance or I could cheer in a game. I ended up doing the Shakespeare performance. So I've had so many incredible people in my life sit me down and say, you need to make the choice. And I keep making the same choice. So I guess I should just stop putting myself in a position where I have to make a choice and just go for it. But it's those little flashes of moments in your life where your life could have gone this way, your life could have gone that way. And I think so many people have millions of moments like that, whether it was a relationship or a choice you made with work, or maybe you're still stuck in it. Maybe you're at a job that really doesn't make you happy and you want to be painting or you want to be, I don't know, doing something different. And you're sitting there, and if you're listening to this, I say quit the job, go for it, because I think, God, universe, whatever it is to you is not a limiting source. And for so long, I used to think it was, that I have to struggle. I have to go through pain to be able to get this thing that I want to be doing. But I think like source, universe, God, whatever that is to you is not limiting. They want you to make money. They want you to lean into your creativity. They want you to go after soccer if that's what it was. And so I just say right now, if that's something that's on your brain and there's something that you want to be doing, just like start going for it. I've even, I'm doing this book called Artist Way right now. It's probably where a lot of this is coming from, but I've been once a week going on artist dates, and it's just myself. No one else is allowed to come, and I just go do something that I normally wouldn't do. So like, whether it's go ride horses or go to a museum by myself and just walk around for like a couple hours, and just, nurture your inner child, right? So if you think about when you're a kid, now I'm just blabbing on, but if when you're a kid, like how creative you were and you're out, making a fort or making a mud pie or whatever it was, and you fully believed, I am a pirate right now, and this mud pie is, is the food that we are eating tonight, and the ale we are drinking is from the well in that tree over there, and you just believed it. And then it's something like you get older and you're like, oh, that's like lame. I don't need to do that anymore. People are judging me. I have like responsibilities, and yeah, we do have responsibilities. Of course, but like there's something about going back and nurturing that childlike part of yourself and like believing the fantasy and believing anything is true and anything is possible. That's just so important for anyone listening to this.
Brooke Butler in definitive. If we take the chronological order, there has been 3 times you reversed the car, as you just said. So a couple hours ago, during the set of that latest release called A Day to Die, but also when you were 14 and that you decided to follow acting and dance instead of football.
Yes, instead. And I like that, reversing the car. And you can always do it, right? You can always say like, I like that. I'm going to use that.
I also know that you had a lot of yellow cards, which is not a really good thing.
Yeah, it is feisty at times, but here we are. It's how I fought off Leon in that movie. Just kidding.
And as you just mentioned a couple minutes ago, you have that pirate mindset concerning your dreams, your aspiration, and your goals that also are now translating through a book that you are writing. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh, you mean the scripts that I've been writing? That's also been just for me. It's another like creative way to just go like sit at a coffee shop and create. I don't want to give too much away, but I started writing this movie that I call Flashes. Who knows what it will be called one day. But yeah, it's about this young girl that has been sick for a long time, and you don't reveal what it is for a while, but she has all these moments in her life where things could go one way or the other, and she calls them like these flashes, like where everything in her life stops and flashes based on what choice she could make, and her life could go one way or the other. And it's eventually always going to go to one specific place, but it's the journey along the way. And I think writing for me was cathartic, not to get like too dark right now, but because I found out a few years ago I had a brain tumor, a pituitary tumor, non-cancerous, but it's been rapidly like growing to the point where it could like eventually make me blind if I don't remove it. So I'm getting that removed soon. It's completely fine. But it was just like makes you think about how fragile and precious life is, and how it's just like make the choices that are going to allow you to feel free and happy and joyful. And it, sometimes that joy too is in like a really dark moment. And I like to say, sometimes like God wants you to hit the rock at the bottom because he wants you to know that he's the rock at the bottom. I say God, whatever that means to you, but that there is someone always there to realize like, hey, you have a foundation. I got you. And just believing that and knowing things are going to be okay, and just like, you just never know when it's your last moment. You never, ever, ever know. And so living each moment completely not thinking about the past. I've made so many mistakes in the past, things I look back at and I'm like, oh, I should probably apologize for that relationship, or things that I've done. Or like thinking into the future can bring anxiety as well. So it's just learning to live in the now and making everything that I do in my life feel like art, because that's what makes me happy. Like the way I make my coffee in the morning is like kind of an art to me, and the way I drink it while I'm writing my morning pages. And then, when I am working, like just making my life feel like art and feel fun. And, I definitely still have all my responsibilities and bills and mortgage and car and health insurance. There's still all of those things, which sometimes, make me want to throw my phone out the window. But it's just like the more you can lean into, what's one thing that makes me feel good? Okay, I'm going to add that to my pile today. And then you just keep adding those things to your pile. And then one day you'll be like, oh, that pile is huge. That pile of things that like make me feel good is like getting pretty big. I think mental health is such a big topic right now. And I'm a big into like reading self-help, but it's mainly the one thing I've found is when I genuinely sit in quiet with myself. I like to have my alone time and ask myself that, like, I know the answers of what's right for me. And I see so many people asking other people, like, what do you think of this? Which is like great and fine. We need community, but there's something about sitting alone with yourself and truly asking yourself those questions. But then once you get the answers, it's what are you going to do with it? Yeah, those are my thoughts.
And Brooke Butler, inside those flashes, which is the current name of your project that maybe is going to change. We don't know yet, but for now it's called Flashes. I can see how instantaneous a flash is and a flash is, which is a sort of very quick light that comes a little bit like our thoughts that can have joy and also darkness, which makes those two words dark joy, which is maybe going to be the name of the sequel of Flashes.
Hey, I like that. You can have credit. Oh, that's good. Yeah, dark joy, right?
And I also learned that in your past and in your journey, you have a grandfather which was from Canada.
I do.
His name is Francois. Can you tell us a little bit more about this legendary
you're
example?
So you're from Quebec. I'm actually French Canadian. My grandparents lived there. My grandpa's name was Francois Ledoux. Why they changed it to Butler, I don't know. I'd have to ask my dad. But yeah, so my real last name should be Ledoux, but here we are as Brooke Butler. I don't know. Brooke Ledoux is like, I don't know if it works, but well, yes. So I am French Canadian, whatever that means, which is where you are right now.
And Brooke Butler, if we take that powerful images of inspiring places that brought you a lot of knowledge, there is, of course, the studio you are right now, because it helps you creatively to write and to sing, for example. But if I had to choose another places, I would say that this is maybe the USC Theater School.
Oh, yeah. USC Theater School. That's where I went. Haha. Yeah, now this is actually like my husband's music studio. He creates incredible indie rock music, plays guitar, drums, like every instrument produces. And so he and I started working on music together. That's actually how we met. We were working on music together. And then the music didn't get finished. Anyway, so we're finishing, now that we're married, we're finishing it now, potentially. We'll see. I don't know. But again, that's just like a fun thing. Acting's, where my heart lies. But the other stuff is just fun.
Potentially, we will see. We don't know. But one thing that I know for sure, Brooke Butler, is that you have this sense and this passion for traveling. For example, in Canada, but also when you were younger in Scotland.
Oh, yeah. I traveled to Scotland when I was 15 and was performing in the Fringe Festival there. So I've been doing this for a long time, it feels like. But yeah, so I used to do tons of theater. We did the musical Crazy for You. And so we would do like swing dancing in the streets. And I was like 15 on my own in Scotland. I don't know. My parents let me do it. And we would like go be like a weird theater troupe and do like performances and tap dancing in the streets and hand people programs to come see our show. And we performed at the Churchill Theater in Edinburgh. And yeah, that was an incredible experience. And things just kind of kept going from there, I guess.
it definitely kept going. And in conclusion, Brooke Butler, if I wanted to inspire myself from your talk in this VH Berries podcast, I would say that you did great in the FF. I used two very hard letters. This is the Fringe Festival.
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it. Perfection. But don't be too perfect.
I won't be too perfect. Thank you very much, Brooke Butler.
Thank you so much for having me, Victor. It was really fun.